If you are broke as, then this video is for you. If you like me, when I was growing up, I really didn't have much money. I had a very low income, and I didn't have people to learn from financially, for the most part. I mean, I had my mom, but I don't know what it is about parents. Like, I feel like most times your parents give you very good advice. Sometimes you have parents that are just not good advice givers, or maybe they made very poor decisions, so you don't want to listen to them. But I actually had a very wise mom. But I don't know what it is. Like, I feel like sometimes you need to hear a message from a certain person, or sometimes it's not quite said in a way where it resonates with you. But if you happen to be broke, if you're the type of person where you can never save $5,000, if you don't have $5,000 in your bank account right now, or if you struggle to keep $2,000 or even $1,000 in your bank account, then I think that this video is for you. And the reason I say this is because I struggled for the longest trying to save money. And saving money for me was a very difficult thing to do. And I think part of it is because we're we're like trained to blow money. We're trained to look at money as a way to reward yourself. We're not trained I feel like the wealthy train their kids. Like, the rich will teach their kids how to leverage, how to use money, versus how the middle class, or how low income, or how poor people are taught to manage money, or their relationship with money. So for me, I actually found it very difficult to save any money. But what I want to share with you is something that I did over the years that made it way easier to save money and build wealth. Now, for me, saving without an objective was the most difficult thing to do. But even when I had an objective when it came to saving, it was very hard still, because it's kind of like, okay, your money is not, when you save money, your money is just like sitting in a piggy bank or a savings bank account. And it's just really boring. And it feels like you're just never going to get anywhere, right? So the concept of saving money just didn't work for me. Now, for my personal situation, I had a lot of credit card debt. Discover card. I'll never forget that card. It was like never ever. It was the balance that was never ever gonna go away. I had a Macy's credit card, store credit card. That balance seemingly never went away. And I had a Visa credit card. I had a MasterCard, but I never used it. And my credit wasn't good enough for an American Express card, thank God. So, because if it was, I would have had that credit card debt as well. But for me, it was all my fault. I couldn't blame these credit card companies. I applied for credit. I bought a bunch of stuff I didn't really need, and I took forever to pay it off. That was really simple as that, right? But I will say that paying off the debt was easier for me than just saving money. And the reason is the goal was to pay down the debt. And I was also looking at how much interest I was getting bent over for every single month. So, I had put myself in a position where I was basically living paycheck to paycheck trying to pay these bills off, right? And, I don't know if this resonates with anybody else. Maybe everyone else who's watching this video is already balling and they don't understand the struggle. But for me, it was a struggle. But what I realized was that when I was paying off the credit card debt, it was way easier because I was on a mission. It was like, number one, I was getting happier for a few reasons. Number one, I would say I was getting happier every time I would pay more than the minimum payment, because I knew how little of my payment was going toward paying down the balance. And the more I paid down the balance, the lower my minimum payment went. So it made me less paycheck to paycheck, if that makes sense. So imagine if you were like me, where your minimum payment was like $125 a month on one credit card, because I owed like $8,800 on this one. And I forget what the interest rate was. But the more I paid it down, the lower my minimum payment dropped down to. And I also realized that more of my payment was going toward principal and less was going toward interest. Because when I was making the minimum payment, so much of it was like I was sitting at $125 and I was wasting like $90 of it, right? So the faster I paid it off, the less they screwed me. But it's like, I can't, like I said, I can't even get mad at them because I signed up for it. I didn't read the terms and the what is it, the terms and conditions, or the whatever it is, like when the rules, the contract when you sign up for a credit card. No one reads all that. The only thing I looked at was what's the credit limit, what are the late fees, and like how much is like a cash advance fee. Like that was really all I paid attention to, because it's probably like 30 pages. Ain't nobody reading all that. Anyway, so, but paying the credit card debt down it was like I had a goal. There was a real goal, and I could see the benefits and the value of doing this. So it was really hard to sacrifice just to save enough money, set aside enough money every single month to be able to make these payments. But once I started seeing the benefits, it was a self-fulfilling and very rewarding process. And so for me, paying off the debt was actually easier than saving money. Because if I just save money and let it sit in my bank account, it was too tempting to want to go in that bank account and withdraw that money and blow it on something. So paying off the credit card debt was very rewarding, because number one, the more I paid off, the lower my minimum payment became. And number two, I started seeing less of my money going toward interest and more of my money going toward paying off the balance. So that was really rewarding for like 3 different reasons. The other thing is you got to look at who you're hanging out with. If you're hanging out with other people and they're in a very similar financial situation as you are, and you're financially struggling, this could very well be part of your problem. For me, that was part of my problem, because I was one of the few people, if ever, in my circle who decided that they wanted to live a different type of life. They wanted to live a different lifestyle. And being in debt, credit card debt, car payments, whatever form of debt you carry, I had it all. I didn't want to live that life anymore because it was suffocating. And I always felt like my job has me by the balls, because if I quit my job, then I can't pay my bills. And then basically my life is screwed over, because I have zero control over my life because I'm in this debt. And I have no savings, I have no investments, I have no businesses that are paying me. There's no passive income coming in. So it's like, okay, how do I fix this? How do I get out of this mess, right? So for me, it was like I didn't know any rich people or wealthy people. So I didn't have people to talk to and run my questions by and be like, hey, how do you figure this out? How do you get rich? How do you make passive income, right? How do you invest in real estate? How do you invest in the stock market? Like, how do you start a business or a side hustle? I didn't know none of those things. And the internet back then wasn't what it is today. So one of the things I used to do, because I didn't have any freaking money, is I would go to Books A Million, and I would literally hang out in the bookstore for hours per day, because since I didn't have any money, the money I did have, I was paying down credit cards. And actually at one point what I was doing was I was buying these credit cards and I was buying these books and putting them on my credit cards. And while I was getting educated, I was putting myself further and further into debt. So I started just hanging out in the bookstores, reading the books and leaving. That's what you do when you're broke, but you're broke on a mission. Once I got out of the debt and I started doing better, I started actually buying books. Here's one. Well, here's one. It's actually pretty good. The Wealthy Barber by David Chilton. This was a good book. This was more of an entertaining book here. Napoleon Hill's Your Magic Power to Be Rich. Both books useful. Both books were useful. I got a whole bunch of other ones, Rich Dad, Poor Dad. I think the more notable book by Napoleon Hill was Think and Grow Rich. That one was pretty powerful. If you haven't read that book, definitely check it out. But, once I got out of debt, or once I got out of credit card debt, the habit required to put money aside, to set money aside to pay off that credit card debt, built a habit for me to be able to save. But still, saving was a little challenging. But what I did was I didn't really go from paying off debt to starting to save. I actually went from paying off credit card debt to more investing. And investing was easier for me because there was a reason behind the investments, right? So I started looking at, different interest, ETFs, index funds, mutual funds, dividend paying stocks, day trading, swing trading. I was looking at all different sorts of ways of taking my money and making my money make more money. And one of the concepts that I, just really fell in love with was just the concept of compound interest. And the more money you have invested in working for you, the more money it's going to make for you. So you're for every dollar you take out, then that's less money that is available that can be compounded. So with that simple principle in and of itself, it just made it so much easier for me to want to invest more money and not want to spend more money, which, or withdraw money from the accounts and spend on some nonsense. All right. And the other thing I realized, when hanging out with my friends is, the people and this is why I say, like, the people you hang out with could impact your net worth, because if people who you're hanging out with are also in the same financial situation as you, and they're not working toward bettering their financial situation, but you are, that can be a significant hurdle for you. And it can make your life a lot harder than it needs to be. So, for example, one of the things we used to do is we would all hang out, and oftentimes we would meet up at the mall and hang out at the mall. The problem with going to the mall is that the whole point of the mall being there is to extract money from the people who walk through it, right? So if you're just hanging out in a place where it's designed to take your money, well, what do you think is going to happen the longer you're there, right? So you have to it's like if you hang around with smokers and you're trying to stop smoking, good luck being able to quit smoking, right? It makes your life a lot harder. If you're on a diet and none of your friends are on diets, and all your friends want to go eat pizza and eat ice cream all day long, good luck getting lean and losing weight, So one of the things I had to start doing is I ended up doing a couple of things. Number one, I ended up having to find new friends, which is kind of hard to do because you don't want to not hang out with your friends, but it's also kind of hard to meet new people that are trustworthy. So that's another topic in and of itself. But when I would hang out with my friends, I would specifically bring some cash with me. So basically, it was a way for me to set a limit for myself. So number one, I leave all of my credit cards in the car. And generally speaking, when you go to a mall, you're not parking very close to the entrance, right? So if I took $10 in with me, basically $10 was enough for me to get a snack, maybe get something to eat if I'm hungry, get some Starbucks coffee, or, just something inexpensive. So I basically put a $10 limit on how much damage I could do by hanging out with my friends. And so when you're hanging out, you're walking around, you're socializing, talking, cracking jokes, whatever. You're going to walk into a sneaker store. Well, I mean, if you're me, you're going to walk into a sneaker store. I can't walk past a Foot Locker or a JD or, Finish Line without going in there to check out whatever they got new. And almost every time, oh man, they got this new, colorway of some Air Maxes or something like that, or some new NMDs, Adidas or something, whatever the case is. There's something that I suddenly see that I didn't come there to buy, but then I see it, and then all of a sudden I can't help myself, So by leaving the credit card in the car, it's like, man, I ain't walking all the way back to the car just to buy these. It ain't that serious. And that was the other thing. Generally speaking, if the purchase was over $100 and it wasn't a planned purchase, I made a rule for myself to not actually buy it unless I've thought about it for at least 48 hours. So basically that would limit how many impulse decisions or impulse purchases that I would make. And that would minimize how much wasted money how much money I would waste. And that money that I would normally be wasting, I can take that money and invest it somewhere else. So just a couple of strategies that I learned over the years that I wish I had learned earlier to get myself going. So this is kind of like the defense part of finance. The defense is like, curbing the spending, paying off debt, and expense avoidance. But the offense side of the game, which a lot of people don't spend enough time about talking about, or even actively working on, is the how do you increase your income? How do you make more money side of the game? That's the offense part. So defense is keeping the money and eliminating debt and keeping expenses at bay. Offense is getting more money, making that money make more money, and coming up with more ways to have that money made more efficiently, faster, and ideally more in an automated passive format. So anyway, I just wanted to share some of these updates with you guys, some of these strategies that I've learned over the years. If you appreciate the content, if you like the format, just kind of conversational or whatever, hit the like button, subscribe, check out my previous videos. Hopefully they're helpful to you, and I'm gonna catch y'all on the next one. Late.